Okay, everyone, welcome to my first foray into YouTube podcasting, and we're just going to call it the Jet Set Trainer Podcast. I guess I'm your host, Scott, Jet Set Trainer, and I have Megan Gaul here with us today. And we're going to be talking about some interesting issues when it comes to health and fitness. The order of events today is Megan's going to speak first, and then myself. Megan, she is going to teach us something really cool. She's going to talk to you, the listener, who is struggling to lose weight, but is finding that strict calorie counting or macro counting just isn't working for them. And maybe not just not working for you, but really triggering to past trauma. And that's something that she specializes in, getting results without the strictness with tracking. I'm really interested to hear about that because I'm excited to learn how I can help clients just like hers who struggle with that. After Megan speaks, I will be talking about the elusive 200 grams of protein a day, but as a plant based person and a plant based person who travels as a jet set trainer. Those are two of your nuggets today to why you should stick around and listen. How do we lose weight without tracking? How do we build muscle and eat protein without eating animal products? And that's what I wanted to leave you with today. I'm excited to speak to Megan and excited to have you, the listener, learn with us on how we can be better at this health and fitness thing in life. So, Megan, I'm going to introduce. She's an online coach from Staten Island. Um, Seen What We Do in the Shadows. She lives next to the vampires. Just kidding. She works with folks who have weight loss goals, obviously. She's in this line of work after having her own 100-pound weight loss journey, eliminating some of these old emotional eating habits. But the thing about her approach is that she's really focused on getting to the root of why you're not doing what you say you want to do. Many of her clients with some past dieting trauma, as we mentioned before, some of her clients do have past dieting traumas, and her coaching style is designed to walk you through, this process of building up your self-trust so that you actually are doing the actions of weight loss. And it makes it 10 times easy for her clients. So, and a lot of this we can avoid some strict tracking as necessary, is what I was led to believe. So, Megan, tell me more about how do we get this specific result of weight loss with a non-specific way?
So you're a numbers person, right? Like you
Yeah,
love the macros.
sure.
Yeah, I do too. I have been doing, we were talking about this earlier, but I've been doing MyFitnessPal calorie tracking for myself since like 2018. And I I've taken little breaks here and there, but I never want to give it up because I love it. Like it's just helpful to me to have that structure and that data. But that is not everybody. There are so many of us who have such a background with what it means to confront yourself with the numbers of what you're doing, your calorie data, day in and day out. And there's so much judgment attached to it that so many people find it so triggering for them. Like I'm sure you've had clients who
Yeah.
find a big block with that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree, and to be honest, like just with anything, even just with weight loss, you can't really put a number to how you feel. And sometimes when we do this macro tracking, calorie tracking thing, that number, it does feel like it doesn't tell the whole story and that it's simplifying a very complex thing.
Yeah, yeah. It feels to me, I love it because it's so clear. Like when
Right.
you learn how to look at your calorie averages and compare it to what your weight is doing over time, it is so clear once you have those numbers to work towards weight loss the way you want to. But there's so much in our thinking that puts judgment on the numbers we're trying to hit. When we go over the number, how much judgment we feel about ourselves. And so much of that is wrapped up in how we grew up and, being brought to Weight Watchers meetings as a kid or,
Right.
having eating disorders as teenagers. All of this stuff is wrapped up in there. So my, my, my curiosity has been like, how do we actually still get to a weight goal that we have? For many of us, it's not superficial. It's very much a quality of life thing. I do, like some people say, I know very succinctly that like I want to lose weight for my quality of life. So I can say yes to a bunch of awesome things in life. And it has nothing to do with my appearance. But they're hung up on that past trauma of those numbers, that clarity is out of my reach. I can't do that right now. My thoughts are too judgmental about it. So, as a coach, I've kind of researched a lot of different ways that you can achieve weight loss, you can achieve that calorie deficit that we know is necessary, but not have to necessarily know what the numbers are.
Yeah.
And I feel like the common thread with people like myself who have been maintaining a large weight loss, that common thread is I have mindfulness and I monitor my food in some way. But it doesn't have to be knowing the calorie amount. It just has to be I monitor my food and I have some basic power to choose what I eat and adhere to my plan. So once you have this, and the problem I think with a lot of folks is that they wake up every morning and say, I'm gonna do this with my food. I'm gonna have no breakfast. I'm gonna have a light lunch. I'm gonna have a really simple dinner and I'm gonna go to bed. But then they see themselves going against their plan
Mhm.
at by, 12 o'clock, 2
Sure.
o'clock. So they see this cycle, and every time they do that daily cycle, they're basically teaching themselves like I can't trust myself with any plan that I put down. So I found this common thread is it's your ability to trust yourself with
Yeah.
what you put down on the plan is what happens. So that's more important than knowing the calories. Being able to say, I
Okay.
put down something on the plan and I adhere to it, that is the thing that we need. It's a little bit more important than the calories. I find the calories really fun and helpful, but
Yeah, so I'm starting to kind of see this a little clearly. It seems like, you're prioritizing that trust and behavior and trusting yourself to do something, regardless if it's helpful to your health even. Just will I go, like anything else? Are you accountable to what you say you're going to do in your daily life? And it sounds like drawing that in without going full bore, I'm going to do a 2,000 calorie diet today. It's, you know what, today I'm going to not stop at Dunkin' on the way to work. And I'm going to get a coffee only, and I'm not going to get a donut or something.
yeah, exactly. And there's so many ways you can build that. The reason people have a deficit of self-trust, um, I think of it like a dog that never gets any treats from you. And it's a horrible, it's a horrible
Sure.
situation. But
No,
like
that's
if
great.
there's a dog that's being mistreated, yeah, like if there's a dog that's being mistreated and that dog, listens to you, constantly sits and constantly, comes when you call it, but never gets a reward from you, never gets a pat, never gets a good boy, that dog is going to learn, what I'm doing is not creating a result, so I'm going to stop even trying.
Right.
It's very behavioral. So that's kind of how I see this self-trust. You're you're never giving yourself like a task that you can accomplish and then reward. So you're always giving yourselves these tasks that are out of your comfort zone, out of your ability to do right now. And therefore, you never get a treat. You never get a reward of saying, I did that.
Sure.
Congratulations. I can do
Sure.
what I say I'm going to do. So that's why what I really like to start with folks is creating a food journal that doesn't require them to look at calories. It just requires them to put down what they intend to have that day. And usually it's a more expansive day than they would normally put down. So a lot of clients would start and say, I really want to, if I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to make sure I have a big old salad for lunch and skip Dunkin' and like have a super simple grilled chicken and broccoli for dinner. That's what we want. We have the power to now change this plan so that you actually have an opportunity to complete the plan properly.
Yeah.
So instead of starting at this weird high level, let's start at what you're doing right now so you can give yourself a win for what you're doing. So
I
what we'll
love
go
that.
through is yeah, like let's look at what you've been doing. Like if you've been having two bowls of cereal for breakfast, let's put that down. If you've been having a Dunkin', caramel macchiato and a donut, let's put that down. But the point right now is not to put down the perfect day of weight loss. It's to put down what you're doing right now and give yourself credit for every time you follow that plan. So, I don't know, does that bring up any like questions,
Yes,
concerns, like
yes.
objections?
No, not quite objections, but I just wanted to backtrack because, the listener here, maybe they're interested in weight loss. Maybe they've never really, I'm sure most people know what calories are, but macros, like I feel like we start to go down a path that a lot of people have no idea really what a macro is. So before we get into the food journaling and how powerful this can be, let's talk about these nuts and bolts. What are calories and what are macros, Megan?
So calories is your measure of energy, and we can use it in so many ways. So if your body is going throughout its day, sun up to sundown, it needs a certain amount of energy to run all the things in your body. It needs a certain amount of energy to pump your heart, pump all the blood throughout your body, get the oxygen to where it needs to go. So even if you don't do anything that day, your body needs calories and energy to stay alive.
Keep the
So
lights on. Yeah,
yeah,
got it.
exactly.
Okay.
So we get so much of that through food. So the way we think of calories with our diet is that if we eat fewer calories than our body needs to do its job all day, so not just run our body, but actually get around, do work, do our walks, all that. If we eat a little less, fewer calories than we need to do that, our body's going to use some stored energy in the form of fat, and it's going to burn fat in order to get that energy. So that's what we think of as fat loss.
Hopefully we're burning fat because there can be instances where we're burning muscle in the
Yes,
deficit.
100%.
And that is a different discussion. But I agree with you in that eating less than what you need is going to lead to at least a weight loss. And that's why in a weight loss discussion calories are important to understand.
Exactly. And a lot of us want to jump the gun and start eating many, many fewer calories so we can lose that weight really consistently on the scale every few days we're seeing a drop in weight. That's kind of many of our initial understanding of what weight loss should look like. But often when that's happening, when you really undercut your calories and really undereat, like you said, you're not just going to be burning fat, you're going to be burning muscle too. And also, it's usually a very unsustainable way to eat. And after a few days or weeks of that, you're going to find yourself wanting to compensate and overeat in the evening or overeat later in the week, on the weekends especially. So usually that can create this yo-yo cycle, which was often a part of people's past dieting trauma
Sounds
too.
very common experience. So before we go down that rabbit hole of calories, we understand what they are. It's a unit of measure or a measurement of energy with food. We want to eat less than we expend. Got it. Okay. So what about macros? What are those, Megan?
So, I, as someone who's lost 100 pounds, like I slowly learned about calories first because we have this simple equation of I eat a little bit less, I lose weight. But the macros became important really fast for me because I was noticing I'm more hungry than I was. And the first way I started to learn about macros were which are the most satiating macros. So let's, and macronutrients are the three places that the calories are coming from: the proteins, the carbohydrates, and the fats. And there's, some more nuance within those, but that's a really simple way to divide them up. And my thoughts, my observations, and what I was learning through research was that if you increase your protein, not only are you helping yourself feel fuller throughout the day, but also you're supporting keeping your muscle mass and not losing your muscle mass as you're using that calorie deficit to lose weight. So that was a big, that was the most important initial learning that I had about macronutrients.
Yeah, so the listeners are hopefully keeping up. The only thing I'd like to add with macros is the big F, fiber. A very, 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 as a vegan or plant-based person, I'm bringing that up because in a weight loss capacity, you're right. I agree. Protein is satiating. It has a great role making you feel satisfied. Fats don't make you feel deprived. We don't have
Hmm.
fats, then we're really feeling deprived. It's also important for your hormones. Carbs, believe it or not, don't make you fat. They provide you energy. So important for long-term sustainable energy as fats, or excuse me, as carbs. And then lastly, fiber is the sensation of feeling full. That's why you can have 5 jelly donuts before you feel full because there's very low fiber and your stomach's like, hey, I got more room. Keep them coming, baby. So when people are designing their meals, if you think about those four things and you're still hungry when it's done, you don't feel satisfied or you feel deprived, or you don't feel like you have a lot of energy, that means you were missing one of those four things. And that's something that I feel strongly about simplifying macros for people.
Yeah, because it can feel so complicated because we're thinking of them in terms of grams, especially when you first start, because you don't have this stored up knowledge of what are the foods that are mostly protein, what are the foods
Right.
where most of the calories are coming from fat. Once we have that stored up knowledge, I'm sure you and I both do,
Yeah.
it's super easy to look at a plate and say that's balanced or that's not balanced. But people who are just starting, it feels very fuzzy. Like they'll say, "Well, beans are really high protein, right? Like so I eat these beans and it's basically all protein." Is what kind of that's what the initial
Yeah.
view is, but it's much more nuanced than that. So once you have that stored knowledge, it's easier. But when you're just starting, it's tougher.
Yeah, and believe it or not, most meals, most things you find are quote are you know not balanced. So eating a balanced meal is actually already a huge change in our diets, at least in a Western capacity. So
Yeah.
when people go on these, even food journaling or when we teach them, they're going to realize that, you know what? Just because Chili's gives me a little bit of vegetables and, mashed potatoes and ribs, that doesn't mean it's balanced. That
Exactly.
means you're going to enjoy it and buy more. In fact, you really think about it from a consumer standpoint, would it make sense for a restaurant to give you a balanced meal? It
It
really
totally
wouldn't.
would not.
It actually would make more sense to make it unbalanced so you eat more.
Yes,
And so,
100%. And you order the stuff around it too.
right. And if you think about food, we're getting really down the rabbit hole, and I want to get back to food journaling after this. But the last point I wanted to make when it comes to your weight, your food, our obesity crisis in the first world nations, it's more profitable. So stop paying these people. Stop
Yes.
stop giving them power over the way you look because you believe them when they say this is a balanced meal. It's not. And it
Yeah.
just requires a little more work, a little more education, a little more skill. Just like with finance, they want you to be in debt and they want you to be overweight and they want you to be on prescription medications the rest of your life. Those are the three things that I firmly believe is a profitable enterprise. And if you're counting on those people to steer you in the right direction, you are going to be raked over the coals with your health and your money and your sanity. So that's what we're trying to stop.
Yes. And that's why I think that's one huge reason I got so into understanding my body's needs for calories and which macros were most helpful for me because I didn't want to just take someone else's view, someone else's random, set of high protein snacks and say, okay, that's all I have to put the thought into it. I really wanted to understand it myself.
Yeah, and so let's get back to food journaling because I have a client in mind that I, am excited to help. That I'm a coach. How, you said, hey, let's write down your day. I have a client with some trauma, you know. How do I approach this client and go about this the right way with food journaling? Because I've never done that before.
So one thing that past dieting trauma usually creates, or in many cases creates, is the that phenomenon where you only track the good days. Have you ever had clients who do that?
Meaning they
The good
are
days with quote.
they're ignoring their one or two kind of binge days.
Yeah.
Got
So Monday to Friday is often pretty easy to track. Breakfast and lunch and snack are often easy to track. But once you get to those times where you're eating, in your view, off plan, suddenly it doesn't go into the tracker or it doesn't go into the journal.
I
Yeah.
think we're all guilty of that. We
Yeah,
all have a free day, right? Where it's like, it didn't happen.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's a sign that the person is putting judgment on the choices that they made, and that judgment is going to slowly wear down your trust in yourself and your ability to do what you say you're going to do. So the first step is to get the tracking happening or the journaling happening without judgment, day in, day out, even if it's quote unquote what the person, bad, what the person doesn't want to see in the tracker. So I love to start with 2 weeks of let's get the tracking happening every single day or the journaling
Track,
happening.
right? That's all we're
Yeah,
accomplishing. Do we track? Love it.
exactly. If you've done it, doesn't matter if it's perfect, doesn't matter if it's got grilled chicken or it's got Butterfingers in there, it doesn't matter. As long as it happens, it's a check.
Great.
So yeah, and so that's another example of putting the bar where you are instead of putting the bar super high and never hitting it and never achieving any treats, no wins. Yeah, we're going to start with the bar where you need it to be, which is first we need the tracking to happen and we need to be practicing this. I don't judge what goes in there. It's neutral to me, and that might take some almost positive brainwashing in a way. You're kind of rethinking what you see in the tracker. Even if it's a Butterfinger, it's still perfect. It's still exactly what we want to be doing. You've still won for the day because you did your tracking.
I agree.
Um,
That sounds great.
yeah, 100%. And then it's great because then you've got so much knowledge about what your patterns are. So you as a coach or the person themselves can see, okay, well, I see that I'm always having something really sweet at this afternoon time. So this is a sign that this is kind of how I like to eat right now. So maybe this is something that needs to go in the plan every morning. Like maybe this is something that on purpose I put that there. Similar things with like alcohol on Fridays. Oh, I always have drinks with the girls on Fridays. Maybe I'll anticipate that and put it in the plan each morning. So, what that does, once you have your plan looking more and more realistic every day, this is where the magic happens. Then you can start letting the person make improvements on that plan.
Yeah.
So they see a plan that is 100% accomplishable to them. They've done it before, so they can do it today. But then they have a chance to ask themselves, okay, I put 3 drinks with the girls today because it's Friday. Would I be willing to try two today? Would I be willing to try having one vodka seltzer and two just plain seltzers? So the person is now trusting themselves to do what's on the plan, and then they can ask themselves if they want to make an improvement. And that creates this huge change in how people approach what they're doing.
I can imagine it's a lot of agency. You're giving them agency back, and that's what I love.
Yeah.
It's
And what the
agency.
person finds is they're able to choose what's worth it to them and what's not, which that's really big because often the rules of what they're having, what they're indulging in or what they're having comes from on high. It comes from Whole 30, like, or it comes from
Sure.
yeah, the Weight
Yeah.
Watchers or whatever. So their rules are coming from their external sources. But that creates all this resentment because when I think about it, when I was 100 pounds, I did not want to give up Cheetos. I did not want to give up McDonald's. I wanted those things. So I was putting them in my plan and asking myself whether there were improvements I wanted to make. Do I want to have the McDouble with mac sauce instead of the Big Mac? That was a big one for me. Yeah. So
Um,
that's kind of the goal. The goal is to trust what you're putting down, and then once you're feeling this calm around your ability to stick to your plan, And that calm makes it easier to be more creative with what you choose to reduce and what you choose to keep in your plan.
And it entirely builds confidence.
Yes,
Because if you don't believe you can do this, how would you succeed?
exactly. And this is the part that, and I learned this from a coach named Heather Robertson who does Half Size Me. So she has this system where her clients do, they give themselves stars when they make improvements on their plan. And it makes sense. And that spoke to me because she's a former teacher. I'm a former teacher. So it was very, the gold star on the chart. But and there's so much resistance to that at first when you're an adult, telling yourself, "Okay, I'll give myself a star." There's a lot of resistance because you think like, "I should be better than this. I should know how to eat healthy during a day." But that view of I should know how to do it, that belief is just keeping you from trying this thing that could help you get to your goal. So it's a challenge to start giving yourself stars or little win marks,
You
but
know
it
what?
really changes your view of what you're doing.
Whether it's mental health or physical health, having a good relationship with that inner child is so important,
Oh,
right?
100%. Yes. And everyone thinks of their inner child differently. Like I have one client thinks of their inner child as like this rebellious teenager. Um, but I always thought of my inner child as like this little 5-year-old who was just terrified all the time. Do you have an inner child image in your
Oh,
head?
I mean, for me, I think the inner child is zoomies. That would be my wife's idea, and I think that's my idea. I am that ADHD kid who's running around just overly happy, getting like almost doing too much in his day and then crashes at the end of the day. Like I feel like
Yes.
that's who I was. And I am in my business, I am with my life. I take on way too much stuff and eventually that's one of my flaws is something breaks and I need to slow down. I need to have someone say, "Little Johnny, you need to slow down when you run on the playground. You're going to trip and fall." So,
That. And you brought up just such an important second piece to that inner child piece, which is when you start treating your inner child that way, kindly, you become, instead of becoming like this authoritarian, everyone says like, oh, I have two parts of my brain, the one that yells at the other part and the one that kind of
sure,
like,
sure.
instead of that, it's now a kind, nurturing parent treating the inner child the way that any loving parent would treat them, which is let's give them room to grow, let's give them reassurance, let's acknowledge what they're going through, and let's find a way forward, but still validate everything that inner child is going through because
Yeah.
it's real.
You're not changing, you're just mitigating.
Yeah.
And that's all it is.
Exactly. So it's this idea of parenting your inner child. Like instead of saying no, no cereal, no McDonald's, no nothing, you're saying, "Oh, I see you really like that. Let's make sure you get some on Saturday, or let's
Yes.
make sure we plan it in. If you're ready to do calories, let's make sure it fits in your calories. If you're ready to do macros, let's make sure that you pair it with some awesome protein and some great sources of fiber. But it just lets you view that part of yourself so much more kindly, and that creates the space for growth that was not there before when you were waking up every morning and not trusting what you were going to do.
Yeah, and this lack of trust in what people are going to do, I feel is almost implanted from other, once again, back to big business or even to other people in the fitness industry, willingly on purpose or not. I think that when people hire a coach or a nutritionist or whatnot, sometimes I just had ran into this with an interview with another potential client. They almost want to treat it like a service, like you're doing this for them,
Mm,
because that's I think a a mistake that a lot of coaches do is whether it's their ego saying, "Yes, I will help you lose weight. It will be all me." And they kind of keep this cycle of taking your agency from being in control of your own body. And I really, really don't like that. And I really, really try to be cognizant with my clients. I'm like, look, I am here to do this with you, not for you. And I think that other coaches, for whatever reason or not, feel like they need to keep a client for the rest of their life. Like they can't let them go. Like they have to follow their plan. They don't give them sustainable solutions for them to do it themselves.
And then you become, I don't know what the relationship is, but it's not a coach. That's not what a
No,
coach is.
it's a toxic. It becomes toxic. It becomes
Yeah.
like any other quid pro quo relationship.
It's codependent.
It's codependent, and you know what? Like codependency is not what I'm about.
Mm-mm.
So
No, I don't want someone to stay with me for life. I want them to know
yes,
to use the time with me to develop the skills they wanted to learn and then whew, go. Go, go, go.
it's great, and I just see that so much in just how people market themselves and what they offer, and their unique selling proposition and whatnot. It can be unique, but at the end of the day, I think one of the best quotes to really put this in a knot is I think it was I want to say Albert Einstein. I'm not certain, but a really smart guy. I'm pretty sure it's Albert. I will look at the end of this. But he said if you have a process or an idea that you cannot explain to a child, then you don't understand it well enough, right?
Good.
Theory of
It's real.
relativity, very, very complex. But Albert has basically said, the heavier things get, the more it affects time. The faster things go, the more it affects time. From a physics standpoint, right? I could be wrong, not a physicist, but there's a very layman's terms to explain the theory of relativity, or no offense, nuclear energy. What are we doing? We're releasing energy in boiling water like a steam choo-choo train. That's all a nuclear plant is through really complex stuff that I can't explain. Fundamentally, that's how we produce energy with nuclear power is we split an atom and boil water. Nice. That hot air turns a generator. Moving on. So when it comes to dieting and nutrition, we can't get so full of ourselves and guard our strategies from our clients to truly understand it. Because if we can simplify it so they truly understand it, they're just going to be more successful.
Yeah, it's like I can't picture myself wanting to go to a business coach that I'm going to be dependent on for my whole life.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
want to use my time with them to grow my potential and then head off. So that's how I like to think of it with my folks too. I want you to reach, increase your potential while you're with me and then use that to just keep going.
Great. And so it really makes sense back with this food journaling, how we're really doing baby steps of, to sum up what I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, and for the listener, we're meeting clients where they're at, where they're at is really, it sounds like with some of these people with trauma, is just trust and confidence in themselves. That's step number one, because who cares about calories if we don't trust ourselves or have a belief that we can do this? How can we succeed? So it sounds like we build that trust first, and then we give them agency through a helpful hand and guiding them and ask for improvement. And how fast or how slow, how drastic, how not is really up to you guys. And every single step of the way when they achieve, we make sure to acknowledge it, whether it be a gold star, whether it be just a, hey, nice work today, just a compliment, or some gratitude I'm sure that you might do with them. Tell me what went really well this week and what makes you proud about this journey. And eventually you can get into macros, you can get into calories. And what I love the most of what you said is they quickly learn, is they ask themselves every day, is it worth it? And that's something that I did when I started tracking calories and macros. It was immediately clear to me. I didn't have that emotional connection to it the way maybe another client might. And I still came to the same conclusion. Is this donut worth it? You know what I'm going to say the food group the food thing that I learned is really not worth it. Donuts, I think, is just already understood, or cake or some real dessert. Egg rolls. Egg rolls are so not worth it. That's the thing that I learned the most in tracking.
It's always an extra when you get the Chinese food,
Yes.
and the egg roll is always an extra. So if you've already got a meal you love, why do you need this extra thing? That's kind of how I feel about when I got pizza. It was like the wings or the garlic knots that went
Right.
with it. I was like, I'm going to focus on the thing that I truly love about this. I don't
Yeah.
need this other stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Love
Well,
that.
Megan, did you have any other things you wanted to wrap up with what you wanted to say about, food journaling, or did we kind of nail it what it really was?
You really nailed it. Like, I think the piece that I want to pull out with what you said is they can go as slow or fast as they want because the timeline and feeling like you're on a deadline is a huge barrier for many of us because we feel like we have to really drastically cut to reach a weight loss deadline, and that creates this sense of I'm giving up stuff that I'm just gonna completely overindulge in when I finish the deadline. So removing a timeline and saying you can go as fast or as slow as you want really creates the sense of, oh, I can have these things anytime. I don't have to wait till after a certain date to have them. So how do I want to have, like, how do I picture myself having them when I'm maintaining this weight loss? Let me fit this in a more sustainable way. So I like that you brought up the as fast or as slow as you want because that's a big barrier for us, and this kind of skirts around it.
Absolutely. Well, hey, Megan, I feel better. I feel like I've learned something. I know kind of actually where to start with a client of mine who's about to get started with me. I'm excited to try this food journaling, so I'm definitely gonna probably reach out to the DMs with you and tell you, hey, before I do this, can I tell you a little bit more about this client and get your advice on that? So that'd be super
Love
helpful.
that. Fantastic. And I was really excited to hop on with you because, like, number one, you have a very unique career. Like, you're an airline
Sure.
pilot. That's fantastic. You're actually from like Minneapolis or just outside Minneapolis, and but you were seeing things like patterns with other pilots, and you just didn't want to be another fat pilot. That's kind of how you were viewing it.
Yeah, I when I got in the industry, I was always kind of health focused, but I just started seeing things, and I was like, this isn't, is this gonna, am I gonna be forced to choose between my health and my career? That was a question I asked myself.
And so many people are in that. Like my brother just became a MTA bus driver. And
Yeah, okay.
so,
Yeah.
and he's a super healthy guy and it's a conflict that we see, the way we make our money and the way we want to treat our bodies. So, what I'm hearing from, what I learned about you is that you went to an online trainer and you were finding success with them. And some of the big pieces with that for my listeners is how once you started to understand how fat loss worked and then you started to see muscle growth, you also, well, I guess this was continued from what you were already doing, but
Sure.
you saw that there were benefits outside of just how you were looking. You saw
Yes.
that there was actually benefits to how you were feeling, the kind of non-superficial benefits that you get when you are seeing sustained muscle growth, and seeing the changes in how your body is working because of that. So a big piece of that involved in this is that you have to support that muscle growth. And so you're
Yes.
actually vegan and you hit 200 grams of protein a day. So this is shocking
Yeah.
to me. And so I know so many people will be really interested in how the heck you do this. How does it work?
Kind of just like we were talking about earlier in your conversation. I didn't just show up one day wanting to be vegan or have 200 grams a day. So this was a process. Kind of what you outlined is I didn't want to be just another overweight sitting professional, really. And like you said, your brother and I know there's plenty of you listening out there who sit for work. We all do. There's so many professions where you're sitting all day.
Right
And
now, I'm sitting.
I'm sitting right now, and I can't wait for this call to end because I'm gonna go do something. But I love talking to you. If I had my walker right now, I'd be walking and talking to you if I could. But what I wanted to say is yeah, the online training was great. It totally changed my mindset. It taught me that it's not what you do in the gym; it's what you do outside the gym that matters the most. The gym is great. Like I love the gym. Like my personal goal is to bodybuild this fall and compete in something. But how I got there wasn't why I hired a coach. It was I don't really like the way I look and feel, and I'm getting into a career that's gonna possibly make that worse. So I really need to get a hold of what I'm doing. And for my own journey, I'm 6 foot. I've been 250 pounds, and I've been as low as 170. I've been a skinny fat guy and a fat guy. So I feel like I've lived a lot of body types, and I now know so much more because of this trainer coach tandem. Ken and Tara, what's up if you're listening? Thanks again. Um, and I took what they learned, and I realized that, like, hey, I would love to give back and be able to help people with this, especially with my unique challenges, which may not be so unique, right? Like your brother or someone listening to this who's sits for work. So in part of this health kick, I did decide to go plant based after. And I will say plant based because I don't have a beaker, I don't have a forensic x ray with me when I'm traveling and someone hands me a cookie or something. I may have ingested some egg or some milk here or there, but it's not my preference. So I do want to say for the listener, I'll just say plant based. That is my goal. If I had it my way, there wouldn't be any egg or dairy in anything I eat. Sometimes I just don't know.
Hmm.
From a very practical standpoint, traveling, that's just the best I can do. Um, so I how do the so sorry to go back in time. The benefits that I learned outside of just do I look and feel good is when you build muscle for someone that sits, your glutes turn off first of all. It causes some imbalance in your hips, in your back, in your neck. We're always hunched over. That hunching and sitting just shortens different tendons and muscles, and when you are active it can lead to injury, and even if you're not active it can lead to debilitating pain, like osteoporosis as you get older. There's your bone density, you're more prevalent to injury, your metabolism's going to slow, your mood will drop. There's so much that is in related to not just movement and muscle growth. And so
Yeah.
I was dealing with neck pain, I was dealing with back pain, I was dealing with the late 20s, 30s, oh shit, I'm going to die at some point.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to get older and I realize, like, why is this hurting? I take care of myself. I go to the gym, I go run a lot, but I'm still suffering from this. And
You weren't just seeing like difficulties with, you weren't just seeing things you were unhappy with your body. You were seeing there's
yeah,
actually quality of life here. There's
yeah.
things that are not easy for me to do now that I envision being able to do at this age.
Exactly, and I think that's a very nice way of putting it. There were difficulties I was experiencing in my late 20s, early 30s that didn't ever expect to have this soon. And it was off-putting and it was frustrating. I'm a type A person, so I was like, I'm going to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah,
So,
I know what that's like.
short answer is, muscle is the material that holds you together in more ways than not. And when you start to lose it or not use it, you start to lose it. And you know the this the what would you call it, the house of cards starts to show, and just things like sitting brings out the worst in that. And so
And
I
it
started.
can
Yeah,
Sorry. I wanted to ask for people who maybe don't sit, but maybe who stand in the same place. There's some jobs like that. Does that
correct.
also affect this kind of, shortening of certain muscles or causing pain where you wouldn't normally see it?
I think it depends. Like, I think standing is much healthier, but it still can be destructive. I'm sure as a teacher, you had to stand a lot and walk all day, and that's tiring, right? I mean, anybody who goes to Disney World, right, spends the whole day walking. Like, I know I am now a Disney family because my wife's family is. So I got the foam finger now for Disney because I don't have an option. But people going to theme parks, it's exhausting to walk around all day if you don't do it normally. And that can lead to repetitive use injuries in your feet, your knees, your back. And if you're already out of balance from, sitting, standing is just going to possibly make it worse. Like we actually,
Especially without the right footwear and everything, you can cause
yeah.
real damage.
And your choices are to live in pain until you need a wheelchair, and then it just gets worse and you slowly melt away, or your choice is to do something intentional about it that's outside of your routines to fix it. And one of those things is resistance training. So um, we can go down that path more about the benefits of resistance training, but the 200 grams, I think is where I want to make sure we get to, if that's all right with
Yeah.
you.
Did you start with this goal, or did it morph over time?
Yeah, so so many. If you're a guy listening to this, you hear 200 grams a day, like almost every person, because it's 1 gram of protein per body weight. The blah 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 blah. Sure, there might be some basis in that, but it's not necessary for everyone. Like I said, my goal is to body build. That's my goal. And 200 grams is a number that works for my body weight and height that me and my bodybuilding coach have come up with. So I don't want people to think, well, if Scott does 200 grams, I'm going to do it. Or The Rock has 500 grams, I'm going to do it. Like, no, just sit down with a professional, come up with a plan. And there are ways to come up with a good protein goal. And 200 just ended up being the goal that the coach and I had decided to hit my goal of bodybuilding, which is a very niche goal. Not everyone wants that who's listening to this.
So you really took your particular situation and sat down with the information with a professional. You didn't
Yeah.
just take a number from an online calculator. You
No,
looked
Joe
at your
Rogan didn't tell me,
yeah.
and the online calculator didn't tell me. I can't stress that enough to people. You can do this yourself. You can trial and error your macros. You can look up all the YouTube videos that tell you the formulas to do it. But at the end of the day, you're going to admit your body's different just like mine. And it really helps to have someone not only hold you accountable, but make decisions with you about your body from a third person, right?
Yes, another set of eyes on the situation is so helpful when you've been looking at your life for your whole life.
Yeah.
But also, I want to say that if you don't, there is no perfect number for your goal. There's ranges that you can go for. And I think one helpful tidbit that I want to offer people who are like, I don't know what my number is, I'm not going to even work on it. You have the power to look and see what you're doing right now. Say, oh,
Yeah.
maybe I'm hitting 65 grams of protein a day.
Yeah.
And then don't forget, you can aim for a small improvement and you're moving towards your goal. Even if you don't hit this perfect number, you can increase your accuracy towards what you're doing. So even if 200 grams is not your goal, this is going to be helpful because you're going to hear things that help you
Yeah.
hit your goal, whatever it is.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I wanted to start the discussion. It's not that you're going to learn today and say, oh, well, I don't need 200 grams of protein. I don't need to listen to Scott. Well, no. If you eat 60 grams and you want to have 80, I'm going to hopefully solve some of this for you in a plant-based way. And I can get into that if you want, Megan, if you're ready.
Ready. I want to hear.
So I did want to have props for the video of what to eat, but unfortunately, some of the times on I'm on an airline trip right now, they throw away your food. And I had that happen yesterday. So I had all the food that I wanted to show was in my little mini fridge. And they came in and either stole it or threw it away. So I don't have props today, unfortunately.
Who
Um,
threw out your food?
they didn't know we were coming back to the room because we were going to a destination and coming back. And they thought we had left for the day. And so they did a full service of the room.
Oh,
Marriott, I'm putting the blame on you, but it's okay. They were
not
really
sponsored by Marriott.
not sponsored by Marriott. No, but it was a nice hotel. They just didn't know we were coming back. So I lost my food. So I'm going to speak to the listener. And if you're watching, I'm sorry I don't have fun props to show you. But I decided to put down some high protein ideas that I rely on when it comes to being a plant based, hopeful 100% vegan in a vegan world. That would be what I want. Um, the first thing I would suggest, vegan, plant based or not, is really have, especially if you travel like me, ha- find a supplement that works for you protein wise. Not because you want to have protein shakes the rest of your life, but to help you get closer to your goal and know what that feels like.
Mhm.
I'm not going to eat 200 grams of protein the rest of my life. That's not going to happen. But in this goal of mine to bodybuild, it's necessary for the time being. Traveling with protein powder is so much easier than traveling with a crate full of lentils, right?
Yeah.
You know what I
Or
do?
the actual, like a bottle of a protein shake, that's extra
Yeah.
weight that you got to lug around.
Yeah, and so what I do is I'm a dirty boy. I just take a Ziploc bag, I measure out my scoops. For me to get 200 grams a day, I plan on 2 scoops a day. And shout out to Vega. It's a pea-based protein. Um, I like Vega because it's on Amazon and I can get a lot of it for a relatively affordable price.
I was gonna say, I just got for the first time Vega, the mocha flavor.
I love the mocha flavor. That's
It's
what I
really
want.
good.
Yes.
I've been having it on like in like overnight oats, and it's been
Oh,
fantastic.
yummy. That's a good idea. I didn't even think
Yeah,
about that.
and
But
it
yeah,
was affordable. It was great. So
right. And affordable, speaking to the listener, I get the biggest one you can get. It's $80, but it almost lasts you kind of the month. So relatively affordable if you can buy in bulk. It's easy to get because it's on Amazon shipped. It comes to my house within 24 hours. So you can subscribe on Amazon to do that. Check the link tree. It's in there. Joking. Um, but yeah, so finding a good supplement that provides, when you're looking at the nutrition facts, 25 to 30 grams per scoop, so helpful. And if you're listening and you're only 20 grams away, 30 grams away from your goal, and that's just with food you're already eating, we're talking 5 minutes, you've reached your goal with a protein shake.
yeah, and what's your favorite way to do it? Just like mixing with water, mixing with what do you like?
I am very warrior focused about this. I just go to the sink, I fill it with taxpayer paid tap water, I put in my scoop and I shake it and I down it all in one go and I
That
go off
speaks to
my
me.
day.
Yes, that speaks to
Now,
me.
my wife
Because
would say, "I no way, Scott, kill me. I can't do that." And that may be you as the listener, and that's fine. There are ways around that. But what were you going to say, Megan?
yeah, no, I'm with you. I feel like even I don't even want to fill it all the way with water. I want it as small as possible, so I just
There
like
you
do a
go.
little. It's like a protein like slop. I don't know.
Bud.
It's hilarious. But if you're someone who's like a foodie who really and you're questioning this like but I don't want to get my food from powders. Like I love my meals. You can use protein powder in your meals, and if
Yes.
you want to get into it, it's fun. Like
Fun.
you can make sweet treats if you like. You can like me, I incorporated into my breakfast using like overnight oats, which you can do totally plant-based. But you don't have to just warrior it, but it
Yes.
is nice to simplify things sometimes and use the warrior
Quickly, I don't need.
mentality.
I got powder in my lunchbox. I put it in my cup. I'm in the airport. I go to the water fountain. I fill it up. I drink it. It's over with. I just got 30 grams. I'm feeling good. So,
Beautiful.
and
Simple.
that's just from a pure convenience standpoint and moving on with my day. I am a foodie too, but when I travel, it's like there's other things going on. I can't, I just got to get the protein for that day, and that's the best way to do it. So for me,
100%.
I'm having one in the morning and one in the afternoon. That's
Hmm.
generally, and if there's ever a shortfall like yesterday where I was trapped in a plane for 12 hours, I might have three. One at lunch, one at breakfast, one at dinner. Just because there's only so much food I can take with me to reach my goals. Um, so from a convenience, easy, sustainable way, I highly, highly, highly recommend people find a protein supplement that they enjoy and has 20 to 30 grams. Tie that in a knot. Um, a shout out to the coffee flavor. It's my favorite. But you're gonna have to, if you go to different places, you can sample proteins, and
Yeah, the GNC, right? Can you do that at the
I
GNC?
think you can. And I will say, like, if plant based isn't quite like, maybe you want like Whole Foods plant based, but when it comes to powder, you want a whey product because it tastes better. Go for it. Um, I will say that pea based powders tend to be grainier. That's according to my wife. And if you can find a soy isolate, I actually think that's the best. It's just a little bit more pricey and harder to find. Um, but we're going to talk about soy, so great segue.
Yeah,
Um,
perfect.
Tofu is my friend. Tofu is a part of my life, honestly, daily. It's fermented. It's great for your gut. It has iron. It has all, I repeat, all essential amino acids for a
So it's a
plant.
complete protein.
It is a complete protein, and there is a lot of anti-soy people out there, and specifically from the male components. And I'm here to set the record straight. And you're more than welcome to go to Harvard Medical College or whatever. It's the first thing that pops up on Google if you ask, is soy bad for you? Now, as with anything with food, You can be allergic, you can have intolerances, you can, in fact, it can be bad for you. So I will say that. But the vast majority of people and mammals on this planet, soy is an excellent source of nutrition. Not only for some of the vitamins and minerals that I mentioned, but it does have all complete amino acids, meaning if you do not get every complete or every essential amino acid, your body can't create it. And that's why we say it that way.
Like bone broth, I think I read that bone broth is an incomplete. Like it's missing
Oh,
some amino
maybe.
acids.
Possibly because it's bone. Bone's not necessarily tissue or muscle. So
Hmm.
I can see that. And why does this matter for the person listening? If you eat a animal-based diet occasionally, you don't necessarily need to worry about this. If you are a full-blown plant-based person or want to be, it's something that you do need to consider because lentils is not a complete protein. Neither is broccoli or black beans or any legume other than soy. And there's one other one out there that's not really accessible to us. I'm forgetting the name. But the thing I wanted to say about soy and people's aversion to it, if you're eating pork, if you're eating chicken, if you're eating animal-based protein, guess what those animals are fed?
They're fed soy, aren't they?
When you drive through Iowa, Minnesota, the Plain States, what's being grown? Fields and fields of soy. Not for me. I promise you, they wouldn't do that for me. They wouldn't have acres and acres of soy fields in Missouri or in the Midwest for me, for the vegans. No, they do not. That's not a profitable enterprise. So, in a weird way, I'm benefiting from animal agriculture because tofu is dirt cheap.
It certainly is.
Because it's mostly being fed to, pig farmers. Because what? It makes small pigs grow really fast with a complete protein that's shelf stable, that won't rot, that's light, it's gonna
Freezable, easy to cook.
freezable, and guess what? It's tasteless. So you get to make it taste however you want. Now, texture is a different thing with tofu. Some people don't like the texture. I'm here to tell you there are ways around that, and some of it involves frying it, some of it involves coating it in cornstarch. They get a yummy little bite with some sauces. The sister to tofu that I use is soy curls. They're amazing. So there's a soy curl brand out of Oregon. I want to say it's McMinnville, and you can get them on Amazon. You can buy a whole box of them for like 40 bucks, and it's the bomb. And we make carne asada tacos with those soy curls.
That is awesome.
And
And
yeah.
you can also, have you ever grated a block of tofu and like
No.
baked it? You can grate a block of tofu, like cheese, like it's just,
Sure.
and then you spread it thin on a baking sheet. Whatever
Uh-huh.
seasoning you want, you can add olive oil,
Yeah.
cornstarch, or just a seasoning blend, and then bake it until it basically dries out and it becomes this pulled pork style, like pulled
My
chicken
goodness.
style
I'm
mix.
gonna do that. So,
Yeah,
and
it's
that's
great for tacos, for sandwiches, whatever you want.
teaching me some things on this.
It's a good
See,
one.
so what I was gonna say is this tofu that I found specifically. If you go to a grocery store and get the average tofu in there, I would recommend extra firm because it's more dense. It has more protein per gram. It's the only reason. So if you're gonna use tofu, extra firm has the most protein, and if you can find sprouted tofu, because it's just even more protein per gram. And
Really?
Costco
Oh, hmm.
Costco has sprouted tofu in bulk, and I am their number one buyer because hear me out. If you're still like Scott, I'm gonna have my chicken, broccoli, and rice, or my favorite protein, tofu's just not for me. It might be for your wallet, okay? Because sometimes with this bodybuilding stuff or with weight loss, going to the grocery store, what's the most expensive thing we buy?
It's protein always.
Protein. And
Mm-hmm.
so I will tell you this, not only for your health, but also for your wallet. When you're buying bulk meat, what's the odds that you're getting high quality meat for a very low price?
Very low.
Very low, right? But hey, that's what you think you need to have, right? So you're going to do it.
Yes.
I know there's many listeners out here who are saying, well, I go get my 12 pack of chicken breasts, cost me 25 bucks, and oh well. So I went to Walmart and got that chicken because that's what I can afford and my gains are important. I hear you, listener. The tofu that I buy comes in a pack of five. If I'm not five or four, I think it's five. It's five. It's five. Yes, it's five, and it is for $10.24.
Oh my gosh. And each one of these has what, like 80
Each
grams
guess, I want you to
protein?
guess. Each single pack has. Just give me a guess. You said 80?
60, 80?
60 grams of protein per pack with five. That's $2 and something cents for 60 grams of a complete protein.
That's
Is
300 grams of protein for $10.
300 grams of protein for $10. And you're going, why are you still buying chicken? That's all I have to say to these people.
To my frugal heart, this is such wonderful news. And I also want to say, like, I love those spreadsheets where you can do price per gram of protein. I love
Do it.
those. But I want to say, because I've had clients who are very hesitant to buy edamame
Sure.
or tofu because of these claims that are really common now that soy will mess with your hormones. And
Yes.
so
I'd love
I'm
to talk
so
about that.
glad that you shared the Harvard-backed studies.
And I'll tell you the cliff notes, Megan, if you want, for the
Yes, I
listener.
do want them, and my
Hold
clients
on,
want them too.
please search "is soy bad for me?" and Google will tell you. It's Harvard will tell you this thing. In the early 90s, they were doing experiments with lab rats with soy, and there was a correlation of cancer and other hormonal imbalances in mice and rats. And they made a causality determination that it may cause similar results in humans, right? But every trial since the late 90s or late 80s, early 90s about this has demonstrated that it's entirely safe. Granted, everyone has allergies and differences, and yes, you can overeat any nutrient and get sick from it, obviously. Like if you're having only soy for the rest of your life, I don't advise that. You still should vary up your protein, just like you would with chicken or pork or meat or whatever. And so, what one, it does not cause cancer. Two, it does not mess with your hormones because this is the rhetoric that they're going to get you with. They're going to say, Scott, tofu has estrogen and you're going to grow man boobs. Okay, let's take a step back. These are the same people drinking bovine milk from an animal breast.
Full of hormones.
Aren't? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they're organic cows. I don't
Yeah.
care. But you're drinking breast milk from an animal. Does that have estrogen in it, Mr. Johnny Bravo lifter guy, with your whey protein? Your concentrated animal milk? Does that have estrogen in it? The short answer is yes. You can go look it up. And guess what? The likelihood that that estrogen binds to your cell receptors is much higher than a phytoestrogen. In fact, it's 100% more likely because phytoestrogens actually have a really interesting structure to it, getting into it in a molecular biological way. I am not a molecular biologist. If someone is listening to this and I butcher this, I apologize. But from what I understand, with hormones, they're chemicals with keys that basically stick out of the cell that fit into the cell that activate different processes in the cell. A phytoestrogen is the equivalent of a key that doesn't have the edges on it. Like if you buy a brand new key for your house and you never get it cut, will it fit in your door? Yes. Will it turn and unlock the door? No. That's the best example I can give. It actually reduces the amount of estrogen that you absorb in a healthy way because it fills that keyhole in your cells.
That is so cool. Now, I had no idea that there was this difference between phyto, like from plants, right? The from plants.
Plants have
Um,
hormones.
wow,
Yeah.
that's
So
fascinating.
that is something that the meat and dairy industry have latched onto, saying there's estrogen in soy, don't eat it because you're going to become a woman. And that goes down to this whole masculinity complex that it's a whole nother story that I love to talk about with masculinity in general. But I'm here to tell you that there's no evidence that soy affects your hormones in any other way than any other food product.
And the fact, and it apply like I like how you mentioned that it is related to this masculinity idea, and because of the prevalence of that, it has leaked to influence, you know, female
Yeah.
diet culture too. And
Yeah.
so I'm hearing a lot of women who say I shouldn't be having it, especially in menopause and all of this. And what I want to pull out from what you said is that there there are so many competing industries that are wanting to increase the sales of what they're creating, and they really want to shape the studies that you hear and amplify the studies that you hear that support you buying their thing.
Yep. Yeah.
So do your own research, but also know that these outsized claims are often the result of industries trying to get you to adhere to
Their
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 model.
their story,
Oh,
right?
100%. And
Because we
so
live
if you're anti, so, and I love that you pulled out that like even if you're not having tofu or edamame, you might be consuming similar things through your pork. And so you're saying I can't have these things that could help you, but you're already ingesting them elsewhere. So it's great to be aware that these competing industries are really trying to change our choices. And so empowering yourself with knowledge is very helpful.
Yes, and like I'm not gonna say a block of tofu is like eating bacon. I'm not gonna say that.
Yeah.
So, but you need the knowledge. That's all I'm trying to give with soy. So tempeh, edamame, soy, some soy-based cereal like Kellogg's has a protein cereal blend that I love it. I call it human dog food for me. I could have it every single day because I'm just like a dog when it comes to cereal because I love cereal. It's special. It's not Special K, but it's Kellogg's protein blend, and it has 15 grams of protein per cup, I believe, or per cup and a half.
And listeners, that's crazy for cereal. Like
Yeah, cereal's
cereal
not
usually
the
has like
most.
2 grams of protein at the
Yeah,
most. And
yeah,
even the ones they say are high protein sometimes have like 3 or 4 grams.
right.
But 15 grams per serving that's a big step up for protein cereal.
It's a little more expensive. I think it's like, you know, I see it anywhere from $5 to $7 a box, but you're getting so much more. And I love cereal, and I literally just drop some raisins in it, and it becomes like my own raisin brand that's protein, and I love it. So, that's another hack for you guys out there is finding 20, because you're going to add milk to it, right? And I like soy milk, shocker, because it has complete proteins in it. When you add 2 cups of soy milk to about a cup and a half of that cereal, you're at 30 grams right there.
That is insane. That's fantastic. Because we're so conditioned to think of cereal as like this junk food now, like, and
Right.
which it often is very unbalanced.
Yeah.
And so when you say I can have a breakfast of cereal for 30 grams of protein, that is a huge relief to some people who are maybe like what I mentioned, who they're stuck in this feeling like they can't trust themselves with food and they constantly have food that doesn't work for them. Imagine asking yourself, am I willing to switch to this different cereal? It's an easier ask than to say, am I willing to switch to egg whites for breakfast?
Sure.
So it's a wonderful, I don't know, it's a wonderful idea. I wrote that down for myself too.
Yeah, that's a great. That's a great point. And so, like I like that you're drawing this out for anybody. This is not I want you to be vegan or plant-based. This is not what this is about. This is just the facts. There are benefits to it. Some of it's in your wallet, some of it's in, easeability. Like the other thing I'll say about plant-based protein is I travel for work. I have my little lunchbox with me. What's in it? I was going to show you, but it's all gone now. But what's in there is I have about one of those packs of tofu a day. I have my little shaker, my little itty bitty shaker, and my protein bag in a Ziploc. Um, and that gets me through a trip. I only pack protein with me because I know I can find carbs and fats everywhere else.
Yes, I wanted to say this because I wanted to highlight what you said because usually what we can find elsewhere is the stuff that's slightly more affordable for other places to provide you. So a
Yes.
continental breakfast will have very little protein, lean
Yes.
protein there for you. So if you only pack protein, you're going to be increasing your ability to have a balanced meal that feels filling on a trip, which is so rare. Don't you notice that when you travel? You're like, that didn't leave me feeling full, like, unless you stuff yourself.
Right. That's why you got to get the 12-inch, Jersey Mikes.
Exactly.
Even that is not quote balanced as much as it could.
Yes.
So pack if you are a traveler like me, just pack protein because you will find cheap and readily available carbs and fats to eat. Don't worry about that. If you really want to bring something with you, I bring rice
Hmm.
or sometimes a pasta. But most of the time, I don't worry about the carbs or the fats. The second thing I'll say about traveling with protein is how do you keep it shelf stable? How do you keep it from getting sick? And that's something that I see in my profession when other pilots or flight attendants bring protein with them. They're like, I got to eat it today because it's going to go warm and we're not going to get to the hotel tonight. So I got to eat it today. And I can only pack for 1 day, Scott. What do I do then? Then I have to eat out. And now all of a sudden we can't be healthy. Hold on. This is where plant based protein is here to save the day. Because my wife's cringing when I say this, room temperature tofu is not going to get you sick at the same rate as room temperature eggs, room temperature ham, room temperature any other animal product. It is not going to fester and grow bacteria at a rate, especially if it's still sealed in its container, that's going to harm you within a day or two traveling. Now, I know that the manufacturer of tofu says this must be refrigerated, but I'm telling you, non-refrigerated milk, try that. That's not going to work out unless
Hmm.
it's designed that way with preservatives, which is not great. But soy milk, you can have room temperature. It's not as long as it's sealed, right? It's much more shelf stable than any other animal protein you're packing with you. So, my advice is to people out there if you do travel a lot and you are going to be more concerned about your protein, you want to try this, I highly, highly, highly recommend finding a plant based alternative like tofu or this powder because it's not going to spoil.
That is such it's such a great objection to the common belief of when I travel, I have to eat out. I have to eat what's there. You actually, there are so many ways to bring shelf stable things, even shelf stable closer to whole foods. You have a lot
Yeah.
of examples of doing that.
Yeah, and I know people who travel with like cans of tuna. That would be a good omnivorous way to bring
Hmm.
protein with you. Um, I love the fish, so I'm not going to eat them. But if you want to eat them, that's your prerogative. Um, that's a way to do it as well. The other protein source I did want to bring up before we get too far down this is seitan. It's very unknown about outside of the plant-based realm. What is seitan? So seitan is vital wheat gluten. What is vital wheat gluten, Scott? So wheat itself has protein. It's a plant. In fact, all plants have protein for you listeners out there. They're just in different varying amounts. Now, wheat tends to have a little bit more protein, and so basically vital wheat gluten, or seitan, is an agglomeration of the protein element in wheat put into a flour. So when you buy raw just seitan, it looks like a bag of flour, but it has a lot of protein per gram. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's significant.
I think it's
And
20 per 3 ounces of cooked seitan. So like
yeah,
not the flour version, but when it's actually cooked and marinated, whatever, you can buy it.
yes.
I think it's 20 per like 90 calories or something, which is
Yeah,
crazy.
it's pretty crazy high. Now, is it a complete protein? No, it's not, Scott. So it's not quite. I'm not quite Team Seitan. They're kind of the runner-up to tofu for me, but it's still excuse me, a significant amount of protein. And if you're pairing it with other proteins in your diet, which you likely are, it's a great way to get closer to your goal of 80, 100, 150, or 200 grams. And it's also shelf stable when you cook with it. So, things that we make with seitan is I can be very warrior like about it and make Satan balls with you add a little bit of flour, a little bit of salt, a little bit of seasoning. You steam them just like you would steam a dumpling for about 30 minutes, and I make them in bulk and I put them in a Ziploc bag and I munch on them.
Right. It's like a, it's the meatball equivalent. I don't like to put
It's a meatball.
every plant-based food into a meat equivalent, but in
Sure.
case you're stuck in that mindset, it's a meatball equivalent.
It's a little meatball you can take with you. It's a doughy meatball that you can season. I like to put curry powder in them, so they're like little curry Satan balls. Um, and those are also very stable to bring with you. They won't go bad. And
all these examples that you have is that they're very breakfast friendly too, which I find a lot of vegan or plant-based followers of mine have trouble with a non-dairy or a non-meat based breakfast or something without eggs. So these seitan balls sound like a great breakfast, like a savory breakfast with some vegetables on the side. These, like any of these tofu examples that you gave, fantastic breakfasts that are like on the savory side. And then you got your soy protein cereal for a sweet one too.
Yeah, tofu's, soy's so versatile. There are, if you want to go junk food with me, like for a minute, Morningstar has the best, like nuggets, and they're soy based.
Great to know.
Uh, Morningstar is great chicken nuggets. If you really want something that's like a little like junk foody, but maybe better for you, that's an easier leap for some people. There's some good breakfast sausages from Morningstar. There's also Trader Joe's has some really, really great vegan options. Like their breakfast sausage is the bomb. They got good soy rizo, which is like like pork chorizo, but soy. Mix that in with things. There's a big world out there with soy that I'm enjoying, and it's good for me, and it's helping me body build. It certainly can probably help you, the listener. So it doesn't have to be salad every day. That's not what being plant based is.
There, you were mentioning a lot of like convenient, like things that people can bring really fast and they don't have to refrigerate necessarily. So are there things that you ever like to prep that are more like mealy? Like the seitan balls to me feel more mealy,
Sure.
like meal-ish.
Yeah, I would say that when I travel, I'd only have so much space in my bag, and it's all I usually pair the tofu, the protein, with something I find in the airport or something I find near the hotel. But like mealy, like meal preppable, like fried rice with tofu. Used to do that a lot. Easy, simple ingredients. You get to decide what's in there. Um, Honestly, any rice Asian dish that you really enjoy, mixing it with tofu is your choice. Easily done. Or seitan. There's a really great product that's called mock duck that you can find. It's a Southeast Asian delicacy because there's a lot of Buddhists in like Vietnam and Indonesia. And so it's like a seitan based duck. It's like greasy, yummy, ducky. You wouldn't know any different. It's called mock duck. Look it up, everyone.
Sounds amazing.
Really good with like Thai food. You can pack something like that. If you're gonna go like even pasta stuff, like I'll have straight up Trader Joe's meatless meatballs with sauce, my favorite sauce, and pasta. Easy.
Beautiful.
I'm really trying to think of these other meals. I've just been so busy lately eating like a warrior. I haven't really been
You have
so
to.
thoughtful as being a foodie, but there's some wonderful recipes out there that me and my wife make. There's an enchilada recipe that we love. We love making enchiladas. Like I mentioned, soy curls, eating almost like a chipotle bowl
Mm.
with the soy curls. I've actually done that. I will make my own soy curls, go to Chipotle, and say I don't want any meat, or I get the sofritas that they have, and then I just add my soy curls, and all of a sudden now it's a carne asada Chipotle bowl.
I love that strategy because when you bring your protein, then you can create the balanced meal with all
Yep.
the other stuff that's available.
Yeah.
So that is
And
fantastic. And I feel like I know we're running low on time, but I have this
yeah,
question because I feel like there's sometimes a division between the really high protein per gram sources and the more helper things. So I often put like the beans and the legumes and like you mentioned broccoli, right? I don't know if broccoli is a helper,
sure,
but it does
sure.
have some protein. But
Yeah,
there's almost a different category. It's not super high protein per gram, but it definitely helps you get
not
that
nothing.
total. So,
Yeah,
do you have some of those kind of helper proteins that you like
absolutely.
to add?
Absolutely. I love lentils. I will add lentils to any chili I make for the rest of time. It's the best. I think, and like I mentioned earlier, fiber is so important to make you feel full, and broccoli is a great fibrous, nutritious, and kale as well is super nutritious. Um, and it does add 2 or 3 grams of protein to the overall total. You'd be shocked. And so, because if you're just listening to me and you're like, okay, Scott, I'm following along with you here. You're taking 2 scoops of protein powder a day. That's 60 grams. Okay. Then you're going to 1 thing of tofu. That's another 60. You're only at 120, Scott. Where are you getting the 80 grams? It's a huge deficit. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about. Is there's protein in everything you eat. And generally speaking, as long as I have my tofu and my 2 shakes, and when I do eat something, I think, is there protein in this? And if there's yes, is it at least 20 grams ish? Yes. Then we'll do the math. If there's 20 grams for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's not tofu, not my shakes. That's 60 right there. That's now we're up to 180. Now I have 20 grams of just residual protein that exists in the carbs, in the fats, in the fruits, in the
Beautiful.
plants that just put me over 200 every time. Residually, I've learned that.
It's brilliant. What I want to like I feel like the formula, and it's not really a formula, but kind of the bigger picture I see with what you're doing and what I see a lot of clients doing is they choose 2 to 3 big hitters, and they're
Yes.
very repetitive with the big hitters. So you're
Yes.
repetitive with
Yes.
your tofu and
And the
your
shakes.
uh, supplements, right? The protein powder and a few other things. And those are kind of the big things you build most of your meals around. And
Yes.
then you have these helpers that you kind of rotate. And people get hung up on the big hitters because they think, oh, I have to buy this every single week. Like, this feels repetitive, this feels boring. But in my view, sometimes getting a little more comfortable with knowing that these big hitters are going to be there every single week and being okay with that really helps you get on board with hitting this goal. Like if you can get over the need to have super, super variety in every single thing, it really helps you do what you're trying to do.
It's unrealistic, Megan, because what I say to people are like, "You're telling me you eat tofu every day? Doesn't that get old?" This is what I tell, or shakes every day. Don't you think that's a little repetitive? You know what I ask them? What do you have every day?
Is it usually pretty repetitive?
I guarantee you, everyone listening here, unless you have a private shelf and you live in the Amazon and you have fresh fruit and berries to choose from every day that's different, guarantee you we all fall into these patterns of things that we eat daily and weekly and monthly. I'm asking you, and Megan's asking you to consider those and just have them be more impactful. Find something that you already eat every week and ask yourself, how can I make this reach my goals better? Because you already do it. I
Hmm.
guarantee it. So don't come at me that I'm repetitive. We're all repetitive. All right? And that's what I
Yes.
would tell someone.
We're just being repetitive in a way that feels
Not as
uncomfortable.
helpful.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if and it becomes comfortable after you really implement it and experiment
Right.
and make it your own. Like you have
Right.
found so many ways you love to make these things and you look forward to them. That
Yes.
can be you, listener, as well, if you make these
Don't
repetitive
take
big hitters
away
your own.
don't take away my dog food cereal. I love that cereal.
That sounds
And
great. I'm gonna try that.
yeah, and so, so at the end of the day, we all know we have to change to achieve a different result. And another frame of mind when it goes to kind of link this all together with kind of back to what you were saying with food journaling, people, and even at your heaviest, right, Megan, you were not heavier, right? You had a number or a body style or a size that you were stuck at, right?
Hmm.
And you could intuitively maintain that, right?
Yeah, I was around this 220, 240 range
For
for a
years.
good few years, and I was staying there.
And I ask people this because they're like, Scott, I don't think I can lose the weight and keep it off for good. And I ask, why aren't you 600 pounds then?
What do they say?
That's a good point. Because you know how to intuitively maintain it, for example, for you, 220 to 240. You're really good at that, in fact. You've done that your whole life.
Hmm.
All we're doing together is shifting your behaviors, your actions, and the foods you eat to do something that you already intuitively do, which is maintain weight.
Ooh, I love that. It
You
it
already
makes it
do maintain
easier.
weight.
It opens up the possibilities for your brain a little
You're
bit.
great at maintaining weight, Megan, at 240. It's just not a number that works for you or is good for you or healthy. And we just need to change that. And I promise you, you will maintain this weight because you've already done it before. Just at a different number. That's all.
Gorgeous.
I think I'm done. I don't want to keep. We have so much to talk about. I would love to keep the conversation going. There's a lot of other themes I think we could really dial into maybe on another show just so we stay focused.
Yeah, I
Uh,
would do a travel episode. I feel like there's a lot of nuggets that you have.
Yeah, and I would like to actually hear more about maybe some personal stories with you with trauma with food that you'd be comfortable and vulnerable
Yeah.
enough to share. Because being a woman and dealing with your weight is different than being a man dealing with their weight for a lot of societal, cultural reasons that I am not going to pretend to know. So I would like to maybe hear that on the next episode, maybe coming soon. But to to sum up, as we were talking before we started, Martin Luther King and people say, "I'm going to tell you what we're going to do, and I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to tell you what I told you." So what did we tell you today, listeners? We started with Megan teaching us that you don't have to go 100% full in calorie counting, macro tracking, and that's the only way to achieve a caloric deficit and the only way to fix your weight loss journey. It's not. And it sounds like, Megan, do you want to summarize that again nicely for the listeners and what we learned?
Yeah, if you're finding that's a barrier for you, you've got this goal, you know that losing weight would increase your quality of life, but you know that right now you cannot get into the calories for whatever reason. Don't judge yourself. You can move forward and you can start losing weight. But your first step is to develop that self-trust. So you've got to be planning a day that you are 100% confident that you can accomplish. Once you're doing that, once you're planning that day that you can do, then you can make your improvements. Like we were talking about, swapping for high protein cereal. You
Yeah.
can make your improvements off of that, but you got to trust yourself first.
And that's what I learned the most was that confidence in yourself is the foundation of weight loss or any real goal setting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you definitely reminded me of that, and I can't wait to try some of this food journaling strategies with a couple clients in mind. Um, then I kind of we transitioned to now. Okay, Scott. Okay, Megan. I understand I'm ready to go in. Like I want to get 200 grams of protein. I'm past that. Maybe you're a little bit more advanced. Maybe you're somebody who's more into muscle building at this point. And kind of was hopefully speaking to you today and talking about introducing plant-based ideas, not because of any agenda I have or any agenda of what it means to be plant-based, but on how useful it actually is. So many people view veganism and plant-basedism as a sacrifice. And I've only found abundance by doing it, and I've just found better ways to do things. I'll never say it replaces bacon or a ribeye steak. I'm not here to tell you that. But what I am here to tell you is that incorporating more plant forward ideas might save you money, might make you feel better, and might actually help you from a convenience standpoint, especially if you're traveling. So, and you can still get an abundance of protein like I do, 200 grams a day. So that we want to get rid of those myths that getting your protein is impossible or that it's expensive or that it's a big sacrifice or it's not good for you. And I hope we kind of touched on some of those. Well, not so fast. Um, are we applying those same statements to the foods you're already eating either? And that's my question to a lot of viewers. How do you know your Walmart chicken's good for you? Honestly. Because those chickens are eating the soy that you don't want. They're being raised. This is where I go off in the vegan propaganda moment. Sorry. But you don't
Well, your
know what
point
those chickens
stands.
you don't know what those chickens looked like when they were slaughtered. You don't know what the slaughterhouse looks like because it's being withheld from you. So ask yourself, are you okay with that? And if you're okay with that, eat it. I don't care. Do I see the soy fields being milled for my tofu? Sometimes when on a road trip, I do. There's not a big covered, you know, I don't know, farm where it's like you can't see the soy. It's in here, but you can't see it. Like no, there it is. It's growing and it's all over, Iowa. I can go see it. any way I want, I can go see the soy, and I can see exactly how it's being whatever. But yeah, and I just wanted to introduce some of those ideas for you listeners from a more practical way. That was my only propaganda for the plant based, so I apologize that, but it's the truth. Just be intentional with your food, and I think that's really what both of us will agree with. Is just what you're doing with weight loss, or even if you're not doing weight loss. Maybe at the very least, we're challenging you to think about what you eat, and you have a lot more control over that than you think you do.
Oh, I love that statement. That was chef's kiss. That was great.
I think that's it for us today. If you need to find Megan, where do we find Megan?
So you can find me. I'm very active with my Instagram. I share a lot of actionable tips, a lot of kind of what weight loss and what weight maintenance looks like. So my Instagram is partake_foodie. And I also have a website with my coaching information, and that's partakemealplanning.com.
Awesome. And if you found this, you probably know where to find me. But if you're coming from Megan's sphere, you could find me at Jet Set Trainer 1 at Instagram with some underscores in there. Or feel free to just search Jet Set Trainer and you'll see my website. And just like Megan, I have a coaching um, opportunities if anyone's interested. If not, just love to say hi. I'm very active on TikTok and Instagram. So links will be in the bio wherever you're hearing this. And thanks for joining us on this first podcast with both of us.
I'm honored to be here. Like
Yeah, it's
this was
fun.
so great to be on your first one. Thank you for having me.
We'll definitely do it again.
Yeah.
Have a great rest of your summer. All right.
Awesome. You too.
Stop.